The United States produces roughly a quarter of total global wealth. Yet, if you crack the surface of its gleaming cities, you find a civil infrastructure network in severe, documented decay. The American Society of Civil Engineers tracks this physical decline. Right now, thousands of highway bridges across the country are classified as structurally deficient, carrying daily traffic while operating well past their intended lifespans. This neglect carries immediate public health consequences. Whole communities, like Flint, Michigan, have suffered through years of toxic water exposure because local governments lacked the capital to replace aging, hazardous pipe systems. Meanwhile, those same taxpayers fully fund massive, state-of-the-art military installations like this one. Except these installations aren't in Ohio or Michigan. They are built on foreign soil. The contrast points to a severe geographic misallocation of resources. By defining national security strictly through the lens of projecting military power abroad, the budget prioritizes foreign real estate over America's own physical foundations. This map illustrates the scale of that global footprint. Right now, approximately 170,000 American soldiers are permanently stationed in more than 80 different countries. These are not active war zones. They are permanent fixtures of the global landscape. Maintaining these physical installations costs the American taxpayer roughly $50 billion every single year. That is just the baseline expenditure for operations, facility maintenance, and personnel support overseas. That $50 billion sits within a much larger annual defense budget approaching $1 trillion. The overseas presence acts as an anchor for that larger number, requiring constant procurement of specialized aircraft, naval fleets, and global logistics networks to keep the bases connected. This financial drain is entirely deliberate. It is the lingering result of a strategy built for a world that no longer exists. When World War II ended, the United States surveyed a shattered continent. Establishing a permanent military presence in Europe was a direct response to the specific, looming threat of Soviet expansion into those vulnerable territories. Western European nations lacked the industrial capacity to defend themselves. The formation of the NATO alliance in 1949 formalized an American military guarantee to protect those recovering economies. Throughout the Cold War, this specific deployment of resources produced a clear return on investment. It contained a nuclear-armed rival and allowed allied nations to rebuild their societies behind an American shield. The initial footprint was an emergency measure tailored to an existential crisis. It was intended to stabilize a broken world, not establish a permanent global garrison. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. The specific threat that justified 4 decades of global military expansion vanished. The bases, however, stayed exactly where they were. 30 years earlier, President Dwight D. Eisenhower warned the American public about exactly this outcome. He cautioned that a massive military establishment, intertwined with a massive arms industry, would develop its own self-perpetuating momentum. Today, a handful of enormous defense contractors depend on these global outposts to survive. Every active base requires an uninterrupted stream of maintenance contracts, fuel, and replacement weapon systems. Their corporate business models require the bases to remain open. This flowchart maps how defense contractors protect that revenue. They spend hundreds of millions of dollars annually lobbying Washington, directing campaign contributions to the specific congressional committees responsible for approving the defense budget. This ensures funding for overseas installations continues uninterrupted. Every dollar spent maintaining an airstrip in a foreign desert is subject to the rule of opportunity cost. It is a dollar actively diverted away from domestic investment. The overarching purpose of the network has drifted. What began as a strategic necessity for global security now operates as a wealth transfer mechanism, funneling taxpayer money into corporate defense profits. This ledger represents a theoretical balance sheet. If the United States zeroed out that $50 billion overseas base maintenance budget and redirected the funds entirely homeward, the physical landscape of the country would change immediately. This chart tracks the estimated cost to replace every toxic lead waterline currently threatening American municipalities. Redirecting that $50 billion covers the entire national replacement cost in a single year. Apply that same capital to transportation. The funds free from foreign base maintenance could systematically clear the national backlog of structurally deficient bridges, eliminating thousands of commuter hazards. Directing the surplus to education provides the capital necessary to strip out asbestos, fix failing HVAC systems, and modernize public school facilities in the lowest income districts across all 50 states. Reallocating this specific pool of tax dollars solves acute physical crises. It transforms struggling towns into viable economic centers capable of generating future wealth. National security relies on the physical and economic health of the homeland. A resilient electrical grid, safe drinking water, and efficient transit systems provide far more functional protection for the average citizen than an extra airbase 5,000 miles away. Projecting military power across the globe requires immense resources. If a nation continually draws down its domestic wealth to maintain its foreign footprint, the internal decay eventually compromises the core of the country. The American public pays for this presence twice, once in taxes and again in crumbling roads and failing schools. Evaluating whether that trade-offs make sense requires looking closely at what those dollars actually buy. A country can only project genuine strength if its foundations are solid. You have to build it at home before